welcome to The Next Word. I'm your host, Chris Warnke, and today we have a very special guest, a very dedicated public service. He's the mayor of Somerset, Maryland, Jeffrey Slavin, a philanthropist, again, an incredible public servant. And I'm just so happy. Plus, it's his birthday. So happy birthday, Jeff.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on.
It's my 60th birthday. I'm so happy to be with you.
And you look fabulous. And you get better every day.
Well, I work hard at it.
Because I know good things come to good people, as they say. And you've been doing incredible things all your life, but you also had wonderful role models in your mother and father. So your mother was a social worker, correct?
Right.
Your father started a very successful construction business, which actually helped build some of the Capitol Beltway here in Maryland,
correct?
Which of course, many cars use every day. And you grew up in a very privileged household.
Yes.
Traveled the world. Got to see many people. Got to see how they lived. But all those experiences you brought back to your life, and you continue to do the things that you learned early on in life. Obviously. So some of those things, of course, you've been the mayor since 2008. You're probably one of the longest serving mayors in Maryland, correct?
Right now, yeah, I am.
Right now. And more recently, since 2016?
Well, I'm currently the vice chair, and I'm going to be running to be chair this month. But I've been very involved with that caucus, yes.
Which was pretty recent, correct?
Yes. It's the newest, one of the newest caucuses at the National League of Cities.
And like the last 5 years, it's really kind of created.
Older, maybe a little longer. I just joined the National League of Cities within the last six years.
Okay.
I have been involved with the Maryland Municipal League,
So Jeffrey, I mean, early on, what prompted you to run for, obviously, local office, which, in fact, you do have a national platform in many ways, especially because of your new role as vice chair, incoming chair of the Gay Caucus. Tell us a little bit about how did that begin?
Well, actually, as you know, when I was growing up, there weren't any openly gay elected officials, right? In fact, there weren't very many openly gay role models, gay doctors or gay lawyers or gay ambassadors or anything. The role models that I had growing up in the 60s were, openly gay people were hairdressers or florists or people, sort of stereotypical. So it wasn't as if when I was growing up, I ever thought that I would grow up to be a mayor or any kind of elected official. But of course, that's all changed now. But I was raised, my parents raised me with the values, the Jewish values of Tikkun Olam, giving back. And so that is something that they instilled in me and my sister. And I think that one of the reasons, one of the purposes of the traveling was not to go to sites and stay in fancy hotels or that kind of thing. It was more to get to know people from different cultures. And I think that really helped to create a sort of open-mindedness in me and my sister that I used throughout, my work life and my personal life for the last. Today, I'm 65 years old, and I'm very proud of the way my parents did raise us. Not in the silo, in the privileged silo that we grew up in Bethesda, Maryland.
But you've had some incredible role models throughout your early career, which also taught you about giving back. As an example, you worked for the late Congresswoman Gladys Spellman, who was tremendously helpful in terms of enlightening people about children's rights, the low-income community. And you were and she taught you to work on a one-to-one kind of basis with these people.
And the other, the role models that I had were all women, because I happened to work for 3 women pioneering elected officials. First, it was the late great DC Councilwoman Hilda Mason. Then I worked for Councilwoman Polly Shackelton, who was sort of the Eleanor Roosevelt of DC. And then afterward, in between, I worked for, no, I guess it was before that I worked for the legendary Congresswoman Gladys Spellman. So these were the people that I based my public service on. I learned so much from them, you know.
Right, right. And as a consequence, you've been very supportive of women and campaigns. And you were what, the first male board member of the women's campaign
Yes, so
fund?
I've been a lot of firsts, but you know,
You were allowed
what
first.
I'm really interested in is the seconds, thirds, fourth, and fifths, and that's one of the things that the place where I am now is really what I like best, and all the things I do now is empowering the next generation and giving opportunities and sharing wisdom with the next generation. And that's something I think I learned from Gladys Spellman, Hilda Mason, and Polly Shackleton, for example, who I work for. But I've had the privilege of knowing so many incredible women role models. I got to meet Ann Richards. I got to meet Dianne Feinstein. I got to meet Barbara Boxer. I grew up. I think many people know this, that my babysitter's babysitter was Cokie Roberts, and of course, an amazing woman. But her mother, my God, her mother, who was a great friend of Gladys Spellman, I mean, her mother made everything happen. You know, these were women that were powers behind the throne, Lady Bird Johnson, Lindy Boggs, and on and on. And so I watched these women and I studied them, and it was all infused in me.
Which it shows now. And we talked a little bit about African American women and how strong they are, and they certainly have had a footprint in our current political platform, including people like Congresswoman Gwen Moore, who I know well. The Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. I mean, there's just so many. We could just name them.
Congresswoman Julia Carson, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, on and on and on. Well, yes, one thing that I can tell you about the upbringing is that a lot of the children that grew up in these privileged households in Bethesda there were African American Black women, domestic workers that basically, I say raised us and instilled in us so many values. And I really want to give them the credit. There were two Black women that worked in our household that, were more like family. And my parents afforded them respect. And somehow just through having them around, we learned a lot, and we were exposed to their stories and what the struggles that they overcame, and that must have done something.
Jeff, in looking today at our U.S. Congress and knowing some of the women I've been privileged to get to know from the African American community, there's some really strong, thoughtful women who have made such an impact on our national policy today. Many of them, which I could name, I know you could name. How did that impact your life growing up with the women that you had around you? I know you had some strong women in your life, of course, including your mother, but you were raised by other women. And I think you attribute a lot of your success today to these women.
Somehow I was just drawn to these women, godmothers, my mother's friends, relatives that were really important. I just, looked around and I saw what these women were accomplishing for their families, in their careers, for their parents. I mean, their volunteer work in the community. It just seems, and I look at Somerset and I see that in my little, microcosm that in the households, it's the women that are the real leaders of the family that are making the decisions and um, they're the leaders and so I was like a sponge, and those are the people that were my heroes, the women, and I just kept seeing a pattern. And it goes back to some of these cliches about women run for office because they see a problem and they want to solve it. Men run for office because they have a certain ego and accomplishment and think, well, I need to go, solve these problems or yeah. So, but I think women get involved in public service for different reasons than men.
Well, and one of them that we have right in Maryland's backyard for years, of course, was Senator Barbara Mikulski, who really was a pioneer. I can remember her walking over from those House of Representatives steps to the U.S. Senate steps when she decided to run for office for the United States Senate, which really changed.
Yes, and remember the reason she ran originally for the Baltimore City Council is because she wanted to stop a highway from coming through her community.
And by the way, if I believe, she was also a social worker, I think,
She
by
was
training.
a social worker. She was a social worker.
So she had that already embedded in her, as your mother had in her, which she then gave to you, of course.
Right.
But Jeff, your parents and you were, of course, they saw the value of taking you to different places in the world, and one of them being Africa,
Right.
as you mentioned in your journal. That also has an impact. I mean, you saw
totally. And my mother wanted us to appreciate all we have and to see that others didn't have those advantages. And so that, on top of the fact that I was a member of two non-majority groups, gay and Jewish, and so that also gave me that extra sensitivity. Maybe that is what attracted me to these women, because I realized what oppression they overcame, and so I was in my own way overcoming my own oppression. While I was invisible as a white male, I was still, in seventh grade, I was assigned to Landon School, which in those days was more like a plantation than a school. But there was institutional anti-Semitism there, and this was not something that I had come up against until seventh grade, because I basically grew up, in Bethesda, where there were a lot of Jewish people, and the neighborhoods were kind of integrated. But when I went to Landon, I kind of got a wake-up call, but I figured out how to overcome it. The same, of course, being gay at an all-boys school where there was, a lot of derogatory comments made about gay people. What I'm trying to do is help to institute policies that make it more comfortable for all LGBTQI people to live their highest quality of life. And sometimes it comes in things like symbols. And so, for example, this year, for the first time at the Town of Somerset, we raised the pride flag. We declared June as Pride Month. And actually, this isn't something that I came in as a gay elected official and like instituted. I waited until, because I've been in office for 18 years and they've had Pride for longer than that. But several years ago, some members of some residents of our town who have gay children made the request that we raise the flag and declare the month. And so it happened, it evolved that way from the people, and it wasn't like imposed or anything. In the same way that I think what's most exciting about the Black Lives Matter movement gaining validation and steam is that for non-Black people, it's time for us to address all these lifetime challenges for Black people, and we have to figure out ways how we're going to do how we're going to do that as elected officials and as governments.
Right. Right. No, I totally agree. We're taking a short break. We'll be right back.
I'm Dr. Alia Jones, Deputy Secretary of the Maryland Department of Health's Behavioral Health Administration. There's a balance between understanding that the coronavirus impacts you as well as older people and avoiding panic or anxiety about this illness. Follow guidelines, stay away from other people as much as possible, and keep up healthy habits. Also realize that if you feel anxious or depressed, you are not alone. There are resources online to help you.
Use your head, slow the spread. This message brought to you by the Maryland Department of Health.
Welcome back. You're watching The Next Word. I'm your host, Chris Warnke. And today we're having a conversation with Mayor Jeffrey Slavin, Mayor of Somerset in Maryland, about many issues, including Black Lives Matter and what he's doing to bring and elevate this issue to his local community as well as to the state and nationally. Through his role as the incoming chair of the Gay Caucus of the National League of Cities. And you have so many titles, Jeff, and you wear so many hats, and that we're all grateful. But we talked a little bit before we took a break about Black Lives Matter, and I know that's near and dear to your heart. Do you want to just talk a little bit more about some of the things you're thinking about?
Well, one of the things that I'm so excited about the Black Lives Matter movement, which of course has been around for a number of years, but now it's gained quite a bit of steam, validation, and everything else, is that in our town, the need to address it was raised by some students, high school students and college students, that put very challenging signs up all over the town, as they did in lots of lower Montgomery County, to make sure that all these, highly educated, privileged people in our communities were aware that it wasn't just on television that was going on. It was going on right in their neighborhood, right next door. And then of course, that there were demonstrations right in Friendship Heights. And many of our residents joined the cause, and there were daily demonstrations at Wisconsin and Western. I thought it was just like the 60s. I was so excited. Of course, I was concerned about the effect of the pandemic, but and so now the town, I'm challenging the town and the residents on what do we want to do to address institutional racism. What can we do to have better symbols and to get rid of oppressive signals. So for example, one of the things I'm hoping to do is to get everyone on board to help get rid of the pro-Confederate Maryland song, Maryland, My Maryland, which is something that I learned in public school, which is, a joke, isn't it, that we were taught that song in public school. Anyway, so I love what Mayor Bowser did, painting the street Black Lives Matter. Maybe there's something appropriate all of our towns can do. We of course put up a sign, Black Lives Matter, but that's just something I did on my own. But I think that it's important that we have some kind of notification, something to recognize the movement or the issue, and then to figure out ways how we're actually going to start addressing it. And so a group of students has started a group to convene conversations to actually talk about it. And it's really only going to be solved eventually if it's by building on one, person to person. It's not going to come imposed by a law or anything. It's got to be the individual interactions to talk about it, and for people to be honest about it. But what we need, of course, is the tool. Leaders need tools, and one nice thing about the National League of Cities and my role there is that there's staff, and there's a committee that's called REAL that's dealing with racial inequities, and they're training, they're giving us the tools to use to hold these conversations, because you're not going to solve or create more understanding between people without the proper boundaries in the conversations. And so it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time, but at least it's in the forefront right now, and hopefully it won't be forgotten, in months to come. It's the same way that you get a shooting and children die, and then there's a big ruckus for a month or two, and then it dies down until the next shooting. Well, let's hope with Black Lives Matter and what's happened in this country, the revolution that's happened in this country over the last 3 months will be ongoing, will be a crescendo for long-term solving the problem, and not just put a Band-Aid on it for now, put a sign up here and say, we did it, now we've moved on. But there's so many things that need to be done, starting with the history that's taught in schools.
Right.
Because it's all one-sided history.
So one of the tools I think that's so important, especially on a local level, and we've seen the local press dissipating across the country. I mean, 65 million Americans in this country don't even have a local newspaper, which is astounding for people like us who are privileged to have several.
Right.
Also, they don't have local television. And I can't say enough about local media. And I know you spearhead the Montgomery County Media
I'm in the middle
network. So tell me,
I have
this
the
is the
blessing,
commercial for.
I have the privilege of being the chair of Montgomery Community Media, which has become the primary source of local news in Montgomery County. And our audience reach has increased like tenfold in the last 4 months. And it's unbelievable. It's one of the silver linings. And of course, this fantastic station, Montgomery Municipal Channel, which is owned by so to speak, by all of the smaller municipalities in Montgomery County, is also playing a very big role, much bigger role. And I'm a big cheerleader for MMC.
Thank you.
And I am the mayor of Kensington, which is where MMC is housed, which I think everybody knows. She and I are going to be meeting with all the mayors. We've been promising to do it for the last 6 months, but some things have intervened, unfortunately. But we are going to, what we want to do is to meet with the mayors, and most of them I don't think most of them really understand how valuable this asset is, not only for them and their own careers, but for their citizens and for all the citizens in the county. Because in a democracy, the exchange of knowledge is what's so important, of unbiased information is so important. And these nonpartisan, non-political communications outlets are vital for the future of the county and all the municipalities. And I'm so glad that I have this opportunity to talk about it today.
No, we're grateful. We're grateful.
65th birthday.
We're grateful, Jeff. And speaking of which, a lot of the shows lately have been informational about COVID, as we all know, since that's been obviously on everybody's mind. as you as mayor, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about people wearing masks. And I know here in the city, Mayor Bowser, I must say, has done an incredible job every day. She's on every day practically. But this whole idea of wearing masks, have you all come across issues with people not wearing masks or people
Absolutely.
pretty complying?
The problem is that there is not directives from the top, and I mean at the federal level and even at the state level. So it's complete anarchy, because when the governor was doing pretty well with the pandemic, and then he decided to give all the counties different options, and then he sort of like threw it on them. So Prince George's and Montgomery County kept very stringent measures, but there was no policy regarding the citizens in our county traveling to other parts of Maryland where there weren't requirements, and then picking up the disease and coming back to the county. There were no rules or suggestions or regulation. So now it's complete anarchy, and then on top of it, to try to hold an election in person is crazy. So there's a lot of pressures in our town, to impose a mask policy like they've had in some of the beach towns, that you must wear a mask at all times, even if you're outside. But what's that going to do if we just have it in our little town, if it's not comprehensive?
Jeff, I can't thank you enough. And I want you to enjoy your birthday.
Thank you.
You're watching The Next Word, and we'll see you soon.